Being lost is not always the burden it might seem to be. Some of us were born for the wild unknown. We few who live for the sights unseen and the paths untrodden. But our journeys are not always made alone. We find strength in our companions and courage in our friends. The journey awaits, a world of wonders just waiting to be witnessed beyond the horizon. For only in discovering the world can we begin to discover ourselves.
Hi, and welcome back to our channel.
Inspired to Game, my name is Sean.
And I'm Lola. Today we are presenting to you a print and play roll and write game coming to Kickstarter next month. It is called A Wayfarer's Tale. This is a game that we've had a couple of plays on so far and have been really enjoying. It's highly thematic. In it, you are an adventurer exploring the terrain, trying to collect treasures and avoid the monsters.
Yeah, and it's everybody has their own map and their own player board, and depending on the roll of dice each round, determines where you're going to go. I'm sorry. You determine where you're going to go based on the roll of the dice. Everybody could be going off in a different direction. Everybody could be starting off in a different place, and it's really easy to learn, simple to play. And let's take a look at how that works.
Here, as you can see before me, is one of the maps that you could be working with. You can write directly onto the map, you can laminate it, or in this case, I have it in a report cover using an dry erase marker so that it can be used again without printing a whole bunch of stuff. So to begin the game, everyone will roll the die to determine where they start. The number will indicate what town they begin. Here, for instance, I rolled a 6, so I'm going to X off the town 5, 6. That is my first town, so I will do an X here. The game will be over when the first person has traveled to all of the towns. From there, we will be rolling the die. If I am the active player, I get to use all 4 of these dice. Everybody else around the table will use these 3. Who is the active player will alternate. This gives me an additional dice to determine what explorer I'm going to use this round for movement. Each one will let you move in different ways, but whenever you use one, you will move 1 hex. So that's if I used an explorer that allowed me to move into a desert, that's what I would do. Movement from a town can be done in any direction, such as this. From there, on additional turns, you will be venturing off to explore the world around you. You cannot ever fork off of an existing route. So that would be an illegal move. When you're out in the wilderness, you must continue in a line to the very next town. So here, this is another town that I've reached. So I would be Xing this off. Keep in mind that each of these movements I'm doing would be requiring a roll of the dice and then using one of the explorer companions in order to determine which adjacent landscape I can move into. Now that I've reached my first town, I can venture off on my next move in any direction I want to reach whatever locations I'm looking to go to. You can always decide to go from a different point. Say, for instance, this is what I've got so far, dice are rolled, and I want to work towards making it towards this town. I can do this. And next turn, maybe I do this, and then that. So as long as you're not forking off of an existing road, you're fine and can continue off in various directions until, as you reach the different towns, you mark them off. And as I mentioned, whoever reaches the end will end the game, and everybody will tally up all their scores and see who won and who was the finest adventurer of the game.
So this is the player mat that each player will have to track their travels and their score eventually. So it also tracks each of your companions and how you use them to move. So once you've rolled your dice, you select the 2 dice that you're going to use to add together, and then let's say you're going to use the coachman. The coachman will let you move into grassland or mountain. You have to put numbers in from left to right, increasing each time, or having the same number. So you're going to want to start low. The lowest you could have obviously is 2. You could put 2, 2, and then maybe jump up to 5. Now, as you fill in each of these areas, any place that has a gem symbol, you will write the value that you used in that box down here in your treasure grid. Same thing if you can counter a monster, you would write that value down in your monster grid. Okay, so let's talk about sailors. Sailors let you move into water on certain maps, and to use them from top to bottom, you have to roll doubles. Now it doesn't matter which value it is, so if you roll 2 5s, you could put the 10 there, but your next one could be snake eyes, and maybe it's just a 2. Um, and of course, gems and monsters, you'll want to plan accordingly there as well. So next is the merchant. Merchant lets you move into desert or grasslands. And all you have to do is fill in a column or row with total that you used. So if you roll a 4, you could mark off there. If you roll a 9, you could mark off the next. If you complete a row or a column, you will get a gem. But to complete that, you also have to have marked off a monster. In both those cases, you roll a d6 and use that as your treasure value. Okay, next is the guide. Guide lets you move into jungle or desert, and all you need there is to fulfill the requirements of the sign above it. So greater than equal to 5, greater than equal to 7, and so on. It doesn't matter left to right. They can be higher or lower values than the one next to them. It doesn't matter. The adventurer lets you move into mountains or jungle, and these you have to increase as you go up this one side and decrease as you come down. So you could have a 4 there, and then a 7 and a 10, and then you come back down with maybe a 6 and a 3. Each group is separate, so your next one can start with a 2 if you wanted, or whatever your low number is, up and down as you go. If at any time you roll dice and you cannot make a legal move, you mark off a misroll. If you mark off the third misroll, that is the end of the game. Everybody finishes off your turn, and then you start with final scoring. And that's how you track everything.
So as you can see from that illustration, the artwork in this print and play is absolutely gorgeous. The colors are vibrant and it's highly thematic the way that it's laid out. We really enjoy that aspect of it. It's really beautiful to look at. There are 4 maps currently that come with it. More may be added during the Kickstarter campaign, I'm not sure. But the various maps add for a lot of replayability as well. So each one will give you additional challenges to be going for, whether it's in addition to your reaching every town, whether it's trying to collect the most statues, or just even providing additional terrain that's more cumbersome to work through. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't, we talked about the colors. If you are worried about your printer being able to put out that much, there are low color value versions of each map and the player boards, all in black and white, and they are just as beautiful, even without the color.
I know that the black and white one, it makes me want to color it because it just looks so beautiful. So they're all really nice, and that's if you're printing and playing on demand. But as we mentioned, the idea of laminating it works really well, better for the environment, because then you can just use a dry erase marker and reuse it, or what we did in our example where you could just use a report cover or something like that. That works well as well. Yeah. Only thing you'll need for this game, other than printing it out, is 4 dice, 4 or 5 dice, depending. Preferably 3 white, 1 of maybe another color for the active player die, and that's about it. So there's nothing else you need other than your writing implement that you want to use for it. I found that it was really exciting to play. We've done a few roll and writes. They're simple games. They're not very complicated, but it's a fun way to spend 30 to 45 minutes or so. We did the first map and it was a great experience. The second map got a little bit more involved. One thing that I think is really interesting about this is as you proceed through your map and as you use your different companions, you're getting to a point where you have to be much more selective. And particularly when we did the map 2, we were reaching a point in our game where, oh, I only have 2 more moves that I can make in mountain with this companion, 1 here, but yet you have to look at the terrain you want to cover. It actually got to where I was calculating out my last moves in order to make it to the very last town in time before I actually ran out of a way to get there. So there is a nice thinky element to it as well, figuring that out as you go along. So it starts off so easy, but then, oh, now I have to actually think about what I'm doing a little bit more carefully.
Yeah, I was running into the very same problem and actually ran into a point where I could not make that move and did have to use one of my misrolls.
And if you haven't done a print and play off Kickstarter before, they are really fantastic campaigns. As anybody who's been doing Kickstarters lately, they know price of freight has gone up exponentially. It's very expensive to have things shipped. And sometimes the shipping can be the same cost or even slightly more than the game, depending on what the game is. So it makes it tricky if you're wanting to commit to a lot of Kickstarters. Now, a print and play is much more simple. Usually the cost of it is pretty much a trip to Starbucks to get a latte one day. They tend to be very, very cheap because what they do at the end is they just send you a PDF that you print out yourself. So for just a few bucks, it's actually kind of really a no-brainer. So if this looks like an interesting game to you, if it looks like something that you think you might enjoy, it's an easy decision to make to pledge.
Yeah, we'll have a link to the Kickstarter pledge to the campaign down below, along with links to our social media for anybody that wants to check us out over there and follow us there as well.
Yeah, we'll put that link once the campaign goes live, because currently it isn't live and it doesn't exist yet, but it will be coming. And as soon as it is up and running, we will add that link to it as well.
Sorry, I'm overzealous.
We can see into the future.
Yeah, so you'll have to come back and look at this video afterwards to get that link.
Unless they're watching it afterwards right now. I'm just making his life difficult.
And that's why I love her.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you enjoyed what you saw, please come back again another time, subscribe, and click that notifications button. It was really wonderful to have you here. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.